Hey everyone, it's Kate. Today on Maritime Ceramics, we are going to be doing a glaze review of Amaco's Pear Celadon. So the Celadon line is something that I have a fair bit of experience with. I have another video about the Wasabi Celadon, and in that video, I kind of get into a lot of the details of the pros and cons of Amaco's Celadon line and how you can get the best results out of them and all that sort of thing. So watch this video first, but then if you don't have a lot of experience with Amaco Celadons, go watch that video because you're going to get more information about their Celadons in general. Because this is the thing about Amaco's Celadon line, it's all the same base glaze. So these glazes behave very predictably in my experience. The only kind of thing that you're never really sure about until you try it is how opaque the glaze is. So some of them, like the snow glaze, is totally opaque. You're not seeing anything through that glaze. Other ones, like the Wasabi glaze, do a beautiful job of showing the carving underneath. That's what I really love about the Celadons, or those semi-transparent glazes. They just look so beautiful over carving. So let's get started with the glazing. Pear Celadon, like all of the Celadons from Amaco, is food safe, it's lead free. My experience has been that they hold up really, really well in dishwashers and on functional ware. I've had really great results with this line of glazes, which is why I keep using them. It is a cone 5 to 6 glaze, so you know, if you're doing high fire, you don't want to use this glaze. I'm going to layer it today with Mayco's green tea to see what happens, and with Amaco's seaweed glaze. So seaweed is one of those glazes that layers really well over all sorts of stuff. So I have high hopes for that combination. And then finally, I'm going to put pearl white on top of it. Pearl white is one of those glazes that sometimes makes magic when it's layered over other glazes. I'm going to do 3 coats of the Pear Celadon and then 3 coats of the seaweed just on the top of this vase. I want lots of seaweed because the more you get, the better the colors are, typically. And I'm doing a lot of glazing, so we'll just make a little note that this is the wide vase. Hopefully that will help me keep it all straight. Okay, on the bowl, I'm going to do 3 coats of pear, and I'm just going to do only pear, I think. Am I? No. Yeah. Okay, so the vase, because it's got that beautiful texture on it, let's do 3 coats of just Pear Celadon on the vase. And then the bowl, I'm going to do 3 coats of pear and then 2 coats of the pearl white around the rim. We've got a test tile, so we can have some fun with this one. We will do 3 coats of the Pear Celadon and 2 coats of Mayco's green tea, just at the top. All right, we have our recipes. Let's get at her. I'm using Mayco's designer liner to make my note on the back of the test tile. This is going to tell us, well, it will help me remember what the heck it is, but also it's going to give us a good idea of how translucent the Pear Celadon is, because not all of the Celadons are translucent. Some of them are actually opaque. I don't think this is one of them, but it's a good thing to test anyway, just in case. Okay, let's let that dry. Opening a fresh jar of glaze is a lot like opening a present at Christmas time. It's bright and it's colorful, and it's kind of like a toy. This little vase, right. I guess I'm gonna pour it inside. Why am I brushing it? I don't know. I don't know, you guys. I'm really looking forward to seeing how this vase turns out. I think of these little vases as my I Dream of Genie vases. I know this looks nothing like her home, but it's that kind of style. I throw these off of the hump, so it's kind of the easiest way to do little things like this. And when I do throw them, I will typically throw a whole bunch of them all at once, and I just do honestly whatever the heck I feel like. So each one is a little bit different, and they each have their own personality, which I really love. There's some things that, you need to do the same, like spoon rests. A spoon rest is a spoon rest, but the little vases I can have a lot of fun with. And I think this color is going to be super cute. As always, we need to pour the inside of the vase. This one has a wide enough mouth that I could probably paint it inside with the brush, but we don't want to do that, do we? No. And I've mentioned this before, if you are going to pour a brushing glaze, make sure that you give it a lot of time to drip out of the inside, otherwise you're going to end up with way too much glaze on the inside of your pot. This post-it note system, I am absolutely loving this. Everybody's got their own way of trying to keep track of things, and this one seems to work for me, as long as I remember to actually make a note of what I've done. The other reason I love this Post-it note system, I think, is because you get a little rush of dopamine every time you check something off of the list. And I think these days, we need to find our joy wherever we can, right? Okay, we've got the Pear Celadon all done, and it's time to do our layering. This one, I'm gonna do pearl white on the rim, and I am just doing it on the rim because that's gonna give me a good sense of how far it moves over top of the Pear Celadon. And typically with pearl white, 2 coats is enough. Okay, it's time to do the inside of the tiny vase. Wish me luck. This is some pretty thick glaze, but if I'm careful... Yep. I did it, no mess or anything. Again, it's the small victories. You have to let yourself enjoy those. It easy on myself with the green tea. I'm just gonna dip it. Life is short. The reason that you have to kind of let these brushing glazes drip for so much longer than you would if you dipped it is because there's an additive in them that helps to keep it from drying too quickly so that you can spread it evenly. The seaweed glaze, at least the one that I've got, is super thin and watery. And I've had this glaze for, I think, 2 years now, so it's really not drying out at all. It does perform better, I find, with more layers. So I am gonna do 3 layers on top of this, which I know makes for 6 layers of glaze, but the 3 layers of seaweed are really still gonna be pretty thin. But seaweed, if you don't have enough of it, it's kind of underwhelming, but if you get just the right amount of it, it can be gorgeous. The last coat of seaweed. We get some drips there, but that's no big deal. We're not going to worry about that. So let's look at what we're putting into the kiln. We're putting in this vase, which has 3 coats of pear on the outside. I poured the inside, and then there's 3 coats of seaweed on top of that, just on the top half. And then we have our test tile, which again, 3 coats of pear, and then I dipped this one into the green tea. we have our Genie vase, which is 3 coats of pear on the outside and poured interior. And last but definitely not least, we have the bowl, which has 3 coats of pear on the inside and on the outside, and it has 2 coats of Spectrum's Pearl White on the rim. All right, time to pray to the kiln gods. Let's pop these in the kiln and see what happens. We've got our Pear Celadon results out of the kiln, so let's have a look at them and see how this Celadon performed. I'm gonna just put a disclaimer up front here. You guys know how pottery firing works. It takes time. It has been a little bit of time since I glazed these, and one of the cameras I use for filming is my phone, and the phone is what has the videos on it that tell me what the heck I did on these. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go through the results, we'll have a look at them, and then if I've forgotten anything or if I say something wrong, I will put it up on screen, right over here probably, and correct myself. So if there's a difference between what I say and what's on screen, go with what's on screen. All right? So from Pear Celadon, I was really expecting performance very similar to the Wasabi Celadon. And I've also used Storm Celadon and Mulberry. Amaco's Celadon line are on the higher end, but they're very consistent, stable, reliable performers for me. And Pear is no exception to that. So I forget, honestly, I did some of these off camera too, and I forget which ones were off camera and which ones weren't. So there are going to be some surprises here. This one I know I did on camera. I don't remember how many coats I did, but it is absolutely beautiful. It is exactly what I expected from the Amaco Celadon. It's a beautiful, bright chartreuse color, much more yellow than green. So I was wondering, I do a fiddlehead spoon rest, and I was wondering if this might be an alternative to the Wasabi, just to change things up. It's not really the right color at all, but it's a very kind of 1960s color. I want to say like a mid-century modern kind of a vibe to chartreuse, which I really love. So it performs beautifully on texture as we expected. It shows the texture. When I was brushing this on, I do remember that it was quite gloopy, and I thought about adding some water and, trying to make it more the consistency I was expecting, but I thought, you know what, we're just going to try it as it is and we'll see what happens. Perfect. So it did melt enough to hide the brush marks. I'm not really seeing any brush marks on this little vase. This is an absolutely adorable little vase, and I am kind of ridiculously delighted by it. This vase was the one that we did with the Pear Celadon on the bottom and Seaweed on top. And I'm not gonna lie, I used this combo because I saw it somewhere online. Somebody had done a mug in this combo and I really liked it. And I really like it here as well. It looks exactly the way it did in that picture online, which is not always going to be the case. With all of these translucent kind of glazes, it looks different in different lighting. So today it's quite a sunny day and I've got the blinds pulled here in the sunroom. They're gray, so everything kind of gets a little gray inside. So it's not really shining at the moment. So I'm going to try and get some B-roll for you, and I'll try different lighting conditions and see if I can capture this in its best light. But just be aware that this one is one of those glazes or glaze combos where what you see is very much going to depend on what your lighting situation is. And then we have, did I do this bowl on camera? I think I did. I want to say I probably poured the inside of this, I'm just guessing because that's what I usually do on the inside of bowls. Anyway, regardless, again, it looks great. So the Pear Celadon performed really well. It's a really consistent color across all of the samples, which again is exactly what I expect from Amaco celadons. And I put Spectrum Pearl White on the rim of this, and it's kind of meh. I'm not really super keen on this. I wouldn't do that again. Spectrum's Pearl White sometimes does some really amazing things, and sometimes it's just meh. And anyway, that's what we have here. So it's a cute little dish. You'll see a little blotch here. It attached to a test tile. I forget which one in the kiln. So, this is definitely a second, unfortunately, because it's super cute. Now, here are the ones that I can't remember what I did on camera and what I did off camera. I do know that some of these test tiles were off camera. Okay, so here we have Pear and Green Tea from Mayco, and Pear and Amethyst from Coyote, and Pear and Power Turquoise from Laguna. Now I'm going to say a disclaimer on the two of these. The Laguna Power Turquoise, I have been having some issues with my Power Turquoise. It's a me thing. It's not a Power Turquoise thing. It's just that specific gravity isn't dialed in, and it's going on way too thick, and it's running like crazy. Really running. So I have ordered some new kiln shelves. Despite the kiln wash and the cookies, the Power Turquoise overtook it all. These were fired hot, which I do know makes Power Turquoise more fluid. And like I say, I know that it did go on too thickly. So, ultimately that's on me. But all of that is to say that you may not get this same result from Power Turquoise over a celadon. This to me does not look like a normal amount of running. So I think this is probably the result of just being way, way too thick. It is an interesting color combo. You can kind of see down here the color combo. I have done Power Turquoise and Wasabi. And I was kind of underwhelmed by that color combination. I don't know, the tones didn't work for me. The Wasabi was a little too warm, maybe. But the Power Turquoise and the Pear Celadon, I think, is a nicer color combo. But this does give you a better idea of how much it normally runs, because I just had applied it to here and it just kind of splooshed a little bit, but not much at all. And so if you're wondering what the difference between Wasabi and the Pear Celadon is, here you go. And the other caveat I'm going to say is with this test tile, which is Pear Celadon and Amethyst by Coyote. Once again, on me, my Amethyst is too watered down. I put too much water in it, and I'm trying to, let some of it evaporate, but it's a process. Anyway, so this turned out to be a really thin application of Amethyst. I'm not sure it's a really good tester of what these two would look like together. Yeah. I have done Amethyst and the Wasabi together. I don't know if I still have that. I probably have a picture of it somewhere. And it's kind of a neat combo, that green and purple. This is more yellow than green, so I don't know. You do you. If you like it, use it, and if you don't use it. The green tea, I was really underwhelmed. I was quite surprised, actually. I expected the green tea to be greener. It ran a surprising amount, given that it's on a celadon. These are super, super stable glazes, the celadons, they don't budge. So it's pretty unusual to have running all the way down to the bottom. All of these were fired to probably a cone 6.5, so that might have had something to do with it as well. But in general, another meh result. So if you're keeping score, Seaweed 1, everything else 0. And then I went crazy. I had an extra spoon rest, and I thought, you know what? Even though I always say that the celadons don't work well on dark clays, let's try this. It was a reclaim clay, so it's kind of I would say a sand color, a light brown. And it probably has some white stoneware and some red stoneware and some buff stoneware and who knows what else in there. So I thought, let's do an experiment. It's only a little bit of clay. The spoon rests are easy to make. Let's give it a try. So I put it on the spoon rest in the center and proved myself wrong. It shows up perfectly well, at least on this sandy color. So we can all learn and grow. So same color, a little darker because it is a translucent glaze and it is on that darker colored clay. And I put blue surf over top of it. Just kind of throwing a random thing at it to see what would happen, to see if we might get something crazy happening. We did not. This looks like blue surf, which is from Mayco. And I have a review on that one. So if you're interested, I'll link to that one down below. So Mayco's blue surf looks like Mayco's blue surf on top of Pear Celadon. So if you like that color combo, there you go. But it, as far as experiments go, didn't tell me anything new other than the Pear Celadon looks good on the buff colored clay, which is good information to have. I'm curious to know, would you use this color? I think it's a fairly, I don't want to say divisive, but like people love it or hate it. I quite enjoy the chartreuse color. It is maybe a little brighter than I was expecting. I was expecting maybe a little bit more green, but still, I will definitely find a use for the rest of this bottle of Pear Celadon. What do you think? Are you going to give this one a try? Let me know down in the comments. Thanks for watching and happy potting.